I think what people think about when they think of Akira is red motorcycle, neon lights, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to you last week, like, that's not what the story is really about. That's what pulls people in.
Right.
And how much more red motorcycle do we get for the rest of the story so far?
There
Like,
was very little, I will tell you that.
And the story continues to be about other things.
Maybe
like,
there
I
was
think
some in Volume 2, if I'm remembering correctly, like where it began, but... Like,
maybe a little, yeah.
Yeah, it's really not prominent.
It's not as much about that.
Welcome, friends, to episode 366 of the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And this week we discuss volumes 2 and 3 of Katsuhiro Otomo's 1982 manga series, Akira. So we're back with Akira. We're on to volumes 2 and 3, which we had word is going to take us up to roughly the end of the anime, but maybe leave some things out. And that seems to be pretty true. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some things that haven't been resolved. I'll tell you that. So there's got to be some more to this story. So that makes me extra excited to eventually see the anime, so I can get some like resolution on some of these, open plot points here. But yeah, this was a journey through quite a bit. Each of these volumes I have are like 300-ish pages, 300 to 400 pages. It's been an interesting journey. It's been a lot of manga to read, but it goes fast. It continues to have this breakneck pace. So really interesting experience. It's something that's still pretty new to me. Whenever I'm reading something like this, I'm like, this is not something I've done much in my life. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of a different... It feels like reading a novel in some ways, but it's also so different. I don't know. It's a really interesting experience that I'm still getting used to. But I'm curious with you, man. You read a lot of manga. Like, how does this compare to the other manga you read in like its feel, its pace, its style?
I mean, I think the best of it hangs with Akira, but the thing about it is it's so detailed and the story is very compelling. You can see so much of the influence in modern manga and even manga of the 90s and 2000s that I was growing up on. And I'm glad that you're enjoying reading it, because often this is the feeling. Like, it does fly by. You can read manga so quickly. And that's kind of some of the appeal of it. I think that helps like young readers. That's why, like, for someone like me growing, as I grew up.
If you're ever in a reading slump, picking up some manga is a good way to probably get out of it, because you can get through it so fast. You feel like you've like kind of accomplished something. And if you pick up something like this, like, there's some headiness to it. There's tons of stuff out there like that. I mean, not just manga, also comics.
Yeah.
And you can find some stuff that maybe is a little more approachable and easier to digest than prose can be sometimes.
A few things that I will say about Akira, though, that do stand out is like it's hyper detailed, and the amount of even just like architectural design and like the world that's being built around you feels so like textured, lived in, rich. And like I think that with the crunch that hits a lot of mangaka, it didn't seem like Otomo was dealing with that. It felt like Otomo had all the time in the world to really detail these cities and put these intricate line work in there.
We talked about that last week.
I know, and it's just that's pretty unbelievable. And
yeah, he was
notable.
Doing it right up to the wire. He had assistants who were helping him. It sounded like a lot of that architectural stuff was being done by the assistants. Like, he would kind of like broadly do it, and then the little finer details they would do while he was doing mostly character work and that kind of stuff, it seemed like.
A lot of the line work is just so impressive in this work, and it's so consistent, and like I'm just really blown away by the artistry of it. And I think that that's something that some mangaka carry through and some mangaka are like striving for. So it's I think this is definitely a gold standard sort of situation.
Yeah. So influential. Like, we started to touch on just the influence of this work last week when we covered Volume 1. If you haven't listened to that, I definitely recommend starting with the Volume 1 coverage, because we're kind of in it now. But I'm gonna circle back to some things that I left off because we were kind of running short on time. There's a few things about the sort of publication history that I find interesting that I don't think I got to. I guess before we get into all of that, what was your experience like reading this as someone who has seen the anime? Did you find, like, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so I guess don't spoil the anime. But
yeah, I won't.
I assume there's a lot in here that's not in the anime. And like, do you find that this is enriching your experience or understanding of the anime? Because I've heard that maybe the anime can be kind of hard to parse for people. This is just some reputation stuff I've heard.
I mean, yeah, that's part of what was so intriguing about it, is because it felt so mysterious when I first saw it, and it feels like it's got this like so much more story there. I think that reading this is absolutely enriching my experience, and in fact, like I'm like, oh, this is cool to go to like. Now I'm almost seeing this is the source, even though like Akira the film is what I experienced first.
I mean, it is the source, but it's that thing we do all the time on the podcast whenever we cover a book that we've already seen the film version of, where all of a sudden you kind of slot it in and go, oh, this is why this is this way.
But in this case, this is also like Otomo was the creative force behind both of them. So it's like really strange to see how different it is, because it is quite different. And there's a lot of the same beats, a lot of the same characters, but things are like jumbled around and events are different. And then, I mean, I assume that the gap from here at the end of volume 3 up until the end of volume 6, which I assume it kind of gets to where the end of the film gets. But yeah, you're going to be shocked by the end of the film. I think there's still some story to be told.
It feels
here.
like there is. Yeah.
And this section, like volumes 2 and 3, were very just like action heavy.
Very action heavy. Yeah.
A lot of running and shooting and like
so many like gunfights and explosions.
Yeah. And trying to, either things that people are trying to whether it's like a location or a person or something, there's things that are being like fought over and captured and like escaped and all that kind of stuff is just constant over and over. And that definitely is cut out quite a bit for the film. But there is a lot of the same beats, and then it gets into it's definitely in the story. I can see where they're building up, hopefully. And I do really want to continue the manga now, because as I was saying, like that's truly the source for me. And I'm like, okay, if this is the true gospel, like I want to know all the way through like how that works, and then kind of see Akira as an adaptation, which is, typically something that's changed. I'll be really interested to continue that forward, which we aren't officially doing on the podcast in the main feed, but we will, I think, probably talk about it on a bonus episode here soon.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. It's funny because this is the time of year where you're sort of like building up a list. People might buy you Christmas presents. I literally added volumes 4, 5, and 6 recently because I was like, I do want to finish this. They're roughly about $20 a piece, so they're not like super cheap to just like go buy. So I'm like, I'll put them on the Christmas list. Maybe somebody will get me some. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping that I'll have the ability to finish these out. I'll get them myself if they don't, because I do want to read them, and we'll cover them on the podcast. So,
I actually did the same thing. I added to my Christmas list, but I put like there's a complete like hardcover.
That thing looked cool. I almost bought that at the beginning, but I was like, I don't know if I want to go all the way because I hadn't read anything. I hadn't seen the movie yet. I'm like, what if I don't love it as much as I think I'm probably going to? It felt like a bit of a commitment. And these versions that I have are cool. But I am really curious about that hardcover version and like what all it looks like. You said you did end up buying that, or you're thinking?
No, I'm thinking about it, and I added that to my Christmas list as like hey, that'd be cool. Like it's like it's their hardcover, and it's like the 35th anniversary, and it comes in this cool red box.
It's like $200, I think.
Yeah, I saw it on sale for quite a lot cheaper. But
there you go.
Anyway, I would be really interested to have that and finish it, because I will finish out the story one way or the other. But just in terms of like my reaction to this as the manga, I think that so much of where we're going with this story is yet to be told, and it like kind of makes me it bums me out that like you still haven't got that, but at least next week you'll get into some of that.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some stuff that, I mean, undoubtedly there will be some stuff left in volumes 4, 5, and 6 that I'll eventually get to, and this will be over on Patreon. So we would love to have your support over there. And if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the rest of the written story, that'll be the place to do that.
Well, and mine as well, because that's going to have a lot of additional material, because I think it continues on beyond where the film goes. So
that's what I was hearing. There's like a whole second part of the story that I think is completely omitted from.
Yeah. So 4, 5, and 6 pending. I'm excited to read that. But like, we talked about last week this idea of like, I think what people think about when they think of Akira is red motorcycle, neon lights, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I said to you last week, like, that's not what the story is really about. That's what pulls people in. Right. And how much more red motorcycle do we get for the rest of the story so far? Like,
there was very little, I will tell you that.
And so like this, and the story continues to be about other things.
Maybe
like
there was some in volume 2, if I'm remembering correctly, like where it began, but like,
maybe a little. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really not prominent.
it's not as much about that. I will say that I think the film visually realizes like how like
Yeah, it's like
amazing
an
that is to
iconic
look at and
thing. We're
stuff,
going to use it more
probably
than,
a bit more of it. The story goes places that I don't think that on the surface. This idea of like a punk teenager on a motorcycle in futuristic Neo Tokyo after a bomb has gone off. The bomb portion is important, but like where it goes with like the philosophy and this idea of looking at these government and these warring factions, everyone's like vying for control in a lot of ways, and like how these people are getting swept up in it, and then even into like some of this like the power stuff, like how do these powers like how are they manifesting, what's happening with that. There's really definitely some lingering questions that we have from these volumes, and I definitely think that like we get more information in the film, but I also think in the manga they probably really go to some great lengths, because the film goes far out there. Like that's all I'll say, and we'll talk about that next week. So without spoilers, just kind of I want to hear more of your experience reading through this, and then did you have, because this is something I noticed on this read too, is like there's like a growing sense of dread, and you can kind of feel like the world reacting to that, and like all this mounting tension as it goes on. Like how was that striking you as you were reading?
As far as my reaction to reading this, one thing I was noticing, because like I'm heaping lots of praise on it, and I want to continue to do so, but couple points for me that were a little bit of stumbling blocks. I admire the insane pace of this book. At times, it gets a little disorienting, and I wonder if I had the colorized version, which I know exists. Like maybe it's the original actual comics were color. I'm not really sure.
So the American versions, which is what I read actually this time, volumes 2 and 3, I read the colored version. I have the black and white version behind me here. So it was cool to read it in that way, because I thought about Akira. I was thinking about like how the color and the striking nature of the art in the film really was something that like pulled me in. So I was like, I wanted kind of both experiences. So I went and sought out the colored version. And those were the original, so the colorization that was happening was in westernizing it. We talked about how like they were adding those different bubbles and changing it in
that makes it a little more like a comic, I guess.
Yeah, and so I think when it was that initial release, whether it was Marvel or Dark Horse or whoever.
It was Marvel. I have some information on that we can get to.
I think that was the original way that Western audiences experienced it. So you were saying you would have liked that, you think?
Wish I had that experience, because I think it would have helped a little bit with the disorientation I was feeling, because one of the things I started to notice is that while a bunch of characters are very distinct looking, there are a few that are drawn in pretty similar ways to one another.
Kaneda and K specifically.
Yes. Yeah. They look pretty damn similar at times.
Shorter dark haircuts, and like there are panels where you're like, which one is that? And sometimes he'll put like a bandage on one of their head just to like differentiate the two.
But also like things happen so fast, and he loves to do this thing that is like I think in a film is the sign of like someone who's a really clever editor or knows how to transition scenes really just in interesting ways. And you could tell, and I had read that he was like a film buff as a kid. As much as he loved manga, he also loves film, and he ended up becoming a film director, which we'll get into more probably next week. But I could tell that sensibility was translating to the page here too, because there were all these moments where like he would have a character talking, and he'd do the thing where like someone in the next scene seems to be responding to them, but they're not actually. And like in a movie, like you kind of see the game that's happening, but when you're reading a black and white manga with characters who are drawn kind of similarly, and it takes you a moment to even figure out, you're like, wait a minute, is this the same scene or not? Like often it would throw me. Sometimes it would be on the same page, so even within, you'd have a couple of panels like that, and then like the next panels would be in another scene, and there's no like signifier that's happening.
It is something that you tend to get used to as you read more comics and manga, for sure. But I understand the color contrast.
And
like
it was
if you
doing
went
a
from
lot.
like
I just kept thinking if there was a little bit of color, maybe that would help me more.
Yeah.
Like,
if you were in a scene that was like very blue, and then you went somewhere red,
it's like, oh, this person's wearing a different shirt. You know what I mean? Like even just something like that would really help.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
But it is something that kind of like it's almost nice to like have a moment of confusion, because it allows you to, while this is so breakneck and so you just fly through these panels, a moment of disorientation allows you to like recontextualize and say like, okay, so let me see, new scene, okay, great, let me like go forward with that in mind.
And he often was doing that. A lot of these action sequences, there'd be like multiple parts to the action all happening at different times with like characters who are somewhat close to each other but not necessarily in the same room. And there's a lot of like moving parts, right? And so he'd have like a cause that seems to be leading to an effect. and then you'd turn the page and you'd get an effect, but the effect is from a previous scene to a thing that you hadn't seen the effect of yet. And like he was doing this so much like interweaving of that again, it gets a bit disorienting. And especially like when you're seeing these kind of explosion scenes where there's a lot of like industrial, we're inside a base, there's fire, there's like wrought iron, like all twisted up. And like, that's kind of mostly what you're seeing. And you're seeing a character like getting like blown up and like kind of covering their face. And so there's just a lot where you can get kind of confused about who is that? Is this is this what just happened? Because it looked like they were going to crash this like hover bike they were on. And then now I'm seeing this explosion, and it's kind of hard to tell from looking at it, like what's exploding there. Is it the hover bike? No, it turns out it's not. It was actually something else that was exploding from a previous, there's a lot of that. And again, like some of it's really clever. And I think in a movie, it works great. In a comic, I don't know if this is just like high level stuff that I'm not ready for, but it's like occasionally I just kept being kind of confused. And while I get that, it can make me slow down and kind of try and piece it together, I was finding there were times where I'm like, I just can't tell. And so I would just continue on. And like eventually you kind of get what you think is, oh, okay, that was probably that. But like there was a little bit of just kind of disorientation throughout that I didn't find to be like a pleasing experience of reading this manga. So that was like one of my like critiques I guess I'll give, and I fully grant that might just be me and my inexperience with manga.
And I mean, I think that's a valid experience to have it. I do think like it may be partially sort of like a habit formed thing that you start to like expect more or can move through it. But I also think you're right on. If you had read the colored version, I feel like you may have I think it would have helped. Appreciated it more. It would have helped some. So that's something to keep in mind for the future for yourself, because there is like there's like fan coloring that goes on in the community.
Well, and I know a lot of people really love black and white, and like we read Junji Ito, and like I thought the black and white was the way to go for that one.
Right.
So I don't even think this is necessarily true across the board. There was a couple of I think colorful pages at the start of that looked cool, but like there was just something about that black and white that really worked for that particular story. For something like this, where it's cyberpunk, and I kind of expect the bright colors and the stark sort of cityscapes and all this stuff. I just found I was kind of missing color here. Maybe call me a modern reader or modern movie viewer, because we've talked about this. I'm not the biggest fan of black and white films.
Yeah, unless you do like them when they're great.
For sure. And I'm not. And I think I'm getting better about it, but it's a little bit of a stumbling block for me, and it's kind of like when I hear a movie's going to be black and white, it tends to make me not as interested, and I have to get over that.
Well, it's like you may, and I get that. That's how we see most people see the world, and that's to be expected. And I think that's something that Otomo, to give him credit, 40 years ago realized a Western audience probably wants to experience color. So went through the process
about
of having it colored, and that's pretty wild.
It's like one day this guy's gonna read it.
I will say too, as far as those transitions, that maybe they're confusing. I also find them to be really compelling, like you said, the clever nature of them. Like,
it is both. Because at one hand, I'm like, this is cool what he's doing, but I'm also kind of confused.
yeah.
There was one really cool part, and I'm just going to try and describe it. But it was in, I think, Volume 3, where there was I forget her name, but she's the girl who like goes after Akira, and tries to kidnap him and steal him away. There's like a part where I think it's Canada confronts her. She's standing on this road, and the lines are like going straight down the center of the panel, and it's like a wide kind of takes up the entire panel, right? And then there's like a little tiny rectangle at the bottom, and she is looking forward, and she's small at the top. In like this perspective, these leading lines go down to the bottom where we see the back of, I think it's Canada's head. Mm-hmm. And his hair, and there's like a gap, and then there's the rectangle panel at the bottom. The rectangle panel at the bottom is a close-up of her face, and she's like saying a line. But because of where it's positioned, the back of his head looks like her hair, because she has this like poofy haircut. Right. And even though it's not, it's the back of his head. He did it in such a way that it looks like it's her profile. And I thought that was such a cool, clever thing to do. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting was that like it was kind of see-through, and the line continues through his head, and I didn't know why that was the case. So I don't know if there's like some conventions going on here that I'm not aware of, but I just was struck by that on like the artistry, and it felt, again, it feels like one of those clever transitions that you see filmmakers do, where you're like making things like shapes look kind of similar, so you use a shape to transition into another shape that looks the same, right? Like
Right.
famously in The Godfather, it's like the tree that looks like the mustache or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a matching transition. Yeah.
yeah. But it was in a comic. I don't know. I just thought it was really
Right.
cool.
I think we talked about him last week, but Akira Toriyama, who's famous for Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, a bunch of other stuff, was a contemporary of Otomo, and the way that he drew action, the way that he'd have characters like jump out of one frame and then be affecting something in another frame, like their like lines would blur,
Like
and
almost
then
breaking form.
and then he
I
would
think we
build.
saw a little of that in maybe Old Guard, I want to say.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
everybody's at this point modern.
Much
modern
later, right?
comics are definitely inspired by, or at least influenced by someone like Toriyama or Otomo. But like you're saying, like Otomo using the form in that way, like Toriyama would do a lot of the same, where like he would build his, like, typically you're thinking like squares stacked next to each other for your panels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he would build panels based on like the action of a scene or something like that. Like, so his panels sometimes would be like going sideways on the page and all this other stuff that was really compelling. And I think like, these guys sort of being at the bleeding edge and like setting the standard is notable for like the 80s and 70s
Really cool.
and 80s. Yeah.
I was watching this, and I ended up clicking off of it because it was getting into spoiler territory.
Mm-hmm.
But I was watching this review of the different editions of this that were out, and there was a term that was used that I wasn't aware of, and I'll see you probably know it, but it's called gutter loss. And she was talking about gutter loss in some of the editions, and I was like, "What is gutter loss?"
Like in terms of like losing it in the margin, like where the pages go together, like you
where the
lose some of
pages
art
go
inside.
together,
Yeah.
is there like parts of the page or the stuff you can't read or see because it gets lost in the gutter. I just thought that was a cool term, and I guess one of the editions there's like a different binding to where you can open it wider, and so you have less gutter loss. It's not a thing I would have thought of, But I did notice because on some of these pages, he would have panels that go across the gutter, that go from one side to the other, or even like the big splash pages, right, where you're getting the full art on both pages, like really big moments. And I didn't think about how, some of the detail is lost in that gutter a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And so
you got to tear your pages out and put it up against the wall.
Yeah, it's
so
like you're missing something there a little bit.
I mean, these days you can read a lot of this stuff like same day of release, like digitally. But like when I was in Japan, I was very aware of One Piece because it's something like I said, I've been reading One Piece for like 20 years now, weekly. And like their releases, like they're releasing tankobons, which are like it's like a few chapters, but it's like a smaller book. If you've ever seen somebody reading manga, most likely it was tankobons. Okay. But then they have like, sometimes they'll do like giant volumes like what we have here with Akira. And then they'll do like even just single issues some of the time as well. And then other times there's like Shonen Jump is like where One Piece is printed. So they'll have like the new Shonen Jump come out, and that's like all of Jump's like current shonen manga that are all kind of built together into one gigantic book. So like you said, all these different printings, there could be different gutter loss, there could be like different the way that like the material that they're printed on may affect the imaging in some way. Like Shonen Jump, for example, has very low quality paper for the most part. So it's all interesting because it's like, that's something that the mangakas are thinking about, because they're like, well, it's like a filmmaker thinking about the distribution process of how are people going to be watching.
Yeah. Why some of these filmmakers are so adamant that you should see it in certain formats, like stuff like this is why. Like sometimes you lose part of the frame in different formats. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, man. So you brought this up. So there's a word that, say it again, the tankobon?
Tankobon, yeah.
I saw something about that in my notes that I hadn't got to last week, so I'm going to talk about that now since we brought it up. Let's back it up. We're going to talk about Akira, because one of the things I didn't talk about Akira much last week because we hadn't seen him yet. And I was like, it's probably too early to talk about Akira. We hadn't seen the character. It was all just talked about, right? And it's built up. And really, it's like the end of Volume 2, I think, before we see him at all. Right. But the image model for Akira was this character Shoryu from a manga that was released in the 1960, whose name I can't pronounce. But what I think is interesting here, he said he liked that he had a sorrowful expression, and he used him as a reference after deciding to make Akira a child. What was funny is when he was editing his film Jiyu, which I'm not sure where this came out. I don't think this. Yeah, he's editing a film that's not Akira. But he said that he would often hear someone in the studio next door yell, "Akira!" which he took to be the name of the assistant director. Because in the film industry, the name Akira is often used to refer to Akira Kurosawa, who we've also covered. Yeah. Otomo thought that the gap was funny and decided to use the name in his own work one day. So that's where the name Akira comes from. He used to hear this, and it is connected to Akira Kurosawa, which I would have
thought so. I mean, if you're Japanese like mangaka that becomes a filmmaker, I'm sure that you're inspired by Akira.
I just thought it was funny that actually was it. It actually was the director. Like that's who he was thinking of when he decided to use the name, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Also the character names Tetsuo and Kaneda, and the code names of numbers 25 through 28 were taken from Tetsujin 28 Go, which we talked about last week some.
Yeah.
And he said his iconic motorcycle from the manga had no specific design. So I guess just of his own creation. Otomo was meticulous in creating and collecting tankobon volumes of Akira, leading to them being released late. During serialization, he faced not only schedule deadlines, but also page limits, and he would have to cut content in order to fit the said limit. He therefore would draw rough designs of what he actually, quote, wanted to draw in the margins of the chapter's manuscripts, so that he would remember when the time came to redraw the collected volume. He had also had to make alterations to the collected volumes due to all the chapter titles being removed, for example, to make sure that 2-page spreads ended up on opposing pages. He wanted everything about the collected volumes, including the page count and paintings, to give a deep and full American comics feel. The covers are entirely in English, but he said that it was not with an eye towards global distribution. He simply, quote, had this incredible enthusiasm to just make something new. With its all-English cover, B5 size, and painted page edges, the first volume of Akira caused a sensation in Japan.
Cool.
So I thought that was interesting. So I guess it had the English title on it in Japan, and that was you've talked a lot about the relationship between the two. That was like a thing that people were excited about in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, I've consumed so much Japanese video games, manga, movies, like everything at this point. They love to use the like Romanized lettering that we use for the English language. They love like the letter X. They love putting like that into things, and it can mean different things in their interpretation of it as well. So they also learn a lot, like many. I mean, I was just in Japan. I was in Japan for 3 weeks. I very rarely ran into someone who knew zero English. And so like they know English, they can read English for the most part, or at least many of them know quite a bit of it. And so I don't know, there's something there that they almost see like in a similar way to how like you may see someone obsessed with Japanese culture get like a Japanese like kanji tattoo or something. They love American letters as well, or the Romanized lettering system.
Yeah, man. So that tracks with what we're reading here. So we have these, or I have this volume. I'm showing it on camera here. This is volume 3. And I saw some stuff about this art in particular, because I thought that was interesting too. Yeah. So he painted the color illustrations for the volumes in a way that he wanted it to feel like an American comic. Because the first volume had a hot red cover, Otomo felt that volume 2 should have a cool one. Its back cover image was created using video, and he said that he ruined Kodansha's VCR by repeatedly changing the color balance to get it right. Following the American and European cover images of the previous 2 volumes, Otomo felt the third volume should have an Asian one, and so he included the signs in the background. Its back cover is a composite photo taken during a race at the Tokyo race course when an image of Akira was shown on the Jumbotron. Because of the first 3 images had followed a pattern of action, silence, action, the artist figured volume 4 should continue it, so he drew Akira sitting down for the cover. And we haven't looked at these ones yet, but I'll just go through it because I think it's really interesting how much thought goes into this.
Yeah.
Its back cover features an original Akira pinball machine, and the cover of volume 5 was the first to feature an event actually related to the content inside the book. The back cover features an Otomo-designed decorative bamboo rake and cost 2 million yen to make, and features a custom-made Miyako doll and mecha models. Otomo felt the 6th cover cover had to be cool because it was the final one, and as a result, it went through the most number of rough designs, as he had to really work to get Canada's line of sight towards the reader without it feeling forced. For the back cover photograph, a life-size kiosk featuring numerous Akira goods was constructed in Kodansha's studio with cooperation from Pseudo Art Workshop and stage manager Nikatsu. Construction, which included 2 fluorescent signs cropped out of the final image and handmade newspapers, and shooting took 3 days. So a lot of work went into the creation of these. I'm not sure if like all of that. No, maybe it is, because this is like what he was saying. Like I think that's the one from the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
So maybe that is on all these editions. It's really interesting, all the thought that went into that stuff. Very cool. While working on the manga, he began working on the film adaptation, which led to a lengthy break between chapters 87 on April 20th of 1987 and 88 on November 21st of 1988. So like a year and a half, it looks like, roughly. The film was released theatrically in Japan in July of 1988 and followed by by limited theatrical releases in various Western countries from 1989 to 1991. Even when Young Magazine became a weekly publication in 1989, Otomo and Akira retained a bi-weekly schedule. The 120 chapters and more than 2,000 pages were collected and released in 6 tankobon volumes by publisher Kodansha between September 21st of 1984 and March 23rd of 1993. A 5-volume anime comic version created using scenes from the film adaptation was published between August 29th and December 6th of 1988, with newly painted covers by Otomo. The colored version, created for America by Marvel Comics, was published in Japan in 12 volumes between October 7th of 1988 and September 20th of 1996. So,
Wow.
Yeah, this is when we got Marvel involved there, publishing in Japan.
Right. It's just later. I thought that would have been the first way to experience it outside of Japan.
Yeah, and it was interesting that there's like an anime version of it too. It was almost like another adaptation happening. Is we're like, oh, now we're gonna get an anime version of the manga coming out. I'd be curious to see what that looks like. That's interesting.
I wonder if that's just screen caps, like screenshots of the film with text on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, could be interesting.
So Akira began being published in the American comic book format in the United States in 1988 by Epic Comics, which is an imprint of Marvel. This colorized version ended its 38-issue run in 1995. Delays in the English publication were caused by Otomo's retouching of the artwork for the Japanese collected volumes. It was these collections that formed the basis for translation rather than the initial magazine serialization. Okay, so they didn't... Okay, interesting. So a different version was used for that. The Epic version suffered significant delays towards the end, requiring several years to publish the final 8 issues. Marvel planned to collect the colorized versions in a 13-volume paperback series and teamed with Graffiti Designs to release 6 limited edition hardcover volumes. However, they ceased in 1993, so the final 3 paperbacks and planned 6 hardcover volume were never published.
Wow.
A new edition of Akira was published in 6 paperback volumes from 2000 to 2002 by Dark Horse Comics. So you talked about the Dark Horse version.
Yeah.
There is that version, but only for 2 years. And Titan Books in the UK. This version is in black and white with a revised translation, although Otomo's painted color pages are used minimally at the start of each book, as in the original Japanese volumes. In 2003, Tokyo Pop published the anime comic version in North America, so that got republished. The English language rights to Akira are currently held by Kodansha Comics. So back to them, because they had that early involvement, and I think that's who did these ones I have. Yes, Kodansha Comics is who are on these.
Right. Yeah.
And these are, from what I understand, very similar to the Dark Horse ones, but actually might be slightly better quality. From that same video I was watching where she was talking about the different versions. They re-released the manga from 2009 to 2011 through Random House. The Kodansha's version is largely identical to the Dark Horse version. In honor of the 35th anniversary of the manga, Kodansha released a box set in late of October 2017 containing hardcover editions of all 6 volumes, as well as the Akira Club art book, an exclusive patch featuring the iconic pill design. This release was presented in the original right-to-left format, which with unaltered original art and Japanese sound effects with endnote translations.
That's
the difference in the hardcover.
Yeah, that's the one to get. I want to get that one.
That's cool. So you were talking about that was the one you were maybe wanting. That would be
I got my eyes on that one. We'll see.
Speaking of those sound effects, by the way, I continue to be very divided on them. There's so many of them in this book, and sometimes they work for me and they kind of are invisible, and other times they just draw so much attention to themselves.
Yeah. It typically when I'm reading manga, it is Japanese characters. It's not.
Oh, interesting.
English language like sound effects, and that is something that does feel in like of a like more Western comics kind of feel.
Yeah.
But I feel like in Western comics there's less of them, and in manga there's just about as much as we have here. But when they're in Japanese, I think it doesn't I don't know, I just don't perceive it quite as much.
I want to touch a little bit more on the legacy and critical reception of this, and then we'll dive into the plot. But Akira is credited as having introduced both manga and anime to Western audiences. According to Kodansha USA, Akira ignited a new generation of dynamism, not only in manga, but also in European and American comics. Its impact shattered all borders. The imagery of Akira, together with that of Blade Runner, formed the blueprint for similar Japanese works in a dystopian nature in the late 1990s, such as Ghost in the Shell and Arbitrage the Third or Three. So Yamada also said that Otomo jacked into his generation's frustration with society in the wake of the defeat of Japan's liberal student movement and created an epic that, in true Japanese fashion, processed societal trauma through cataclysmic visual symbolism.
I was talking about some of that last week with like the idea of like Godzilla and
it does have a lot to do like similar to Godzilla. Yeah,
Astro Boy. There's like a lot of like that being processed in the art, I would say, and sometimes in ways that people lose sight of what the original sort of influence or the original intention was.
Yeah.
You know, because people see Godzilla, especially the Americanized Godzilla. I would say Godzilla -1 that came out recently. Definitely.
I haven't seen that one yet.
So that one definitely has an eye on that. Whereas like you can see like the more American versions has nothing to do with Japan reacting to like nuclear war or anything like that. Yeah.
So I thought this is another interesting quote here from another critic. Writing for the Japan Times, Matt Schley said, "For many readers, Akira was a revelation. Each panel features a head-spinning amount of detail, and Otomo, an avowed film buff, keeps things moving at a breathless, cinematic pace." So that was something we had touched on already. Yeah, that's definitely true here. It is said that Akira really cemented Otomo's reputation, and the success of the animated adaptation allowed him to concentrate on film rather than manga, which is how his career really began. And I was seeing that... speaking of legacy and what's happened since then, he kind of really transitioned more into film after this.
Yes. Yep.
He's done a little bit here and there, but not a lot. So you already talked about the creator of Dragon Ball saying that he was influenced by him. I also saw.
Well, I think they were more contemporaries, so kind of.
Well, he said that Akira Toriyama was interviewed on who his favorite manga artist was, and he said that he found his peer Otomo to be incredible.
Okay. There you go.
But I mean, he was his peer. Also, Masashi Kishimoto from Naruto. Yeah. Naruto. Yeah. Has also said that Otomo is one of his two biggest influences.
Very cool.
So super influential there. Even American filmmaker Rian Johnson, which by the way just saw the most recent Knives Out. It's really fucking good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited,
dude. You're gonna enjoy it.
I love it.
Rian Johnson has said he's a big fan of Otomo, and has pointed out he's pointed out similarities between how he depicted telekinesis in Looper to how Otomo did in Domu.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Now this was the part I was touching on before about like what his legacy in manga has been and like what he's continued to do. So I thought this was interesting. So initially reported in 2012, Otomo was said to be working on his first long-form manga since Akira. Planning to draw the work that is set in Japan's Meiji period, without assistance, he was initially targeting a younger audience, but said that the story had developed more towards an older one. Although planned to begin in the fall of 2012, Otomo revealed in November of that year that the series had been delayed. By 2018, Otomo said he was doing a full-length work, but the contents were still secret. And that's the last update I could find about this.
Damn.
So it's been 13 years now.
Yeah.
This has been talked about. He's working on long-form manga for the first time. He's done some other film projects in between since then.
I hope he's working on it, but at the same time, I'm sure, what is he now, like getting towards 80, 70 something?
Yeah,
80?
let me see when he was born.
Either way, I hope that he's happy and content and, work at your own pace. Hopefully you don't have deadlines and you can just enjoy your life.
He is 71. I'm sure he could take his time and do things.
Take your time, create what you want
but
to.
I'd love to
enjoy
see
your
like
life.
another like masterpiece come out. You know?
Of course, yeah. I selfishly would love that, but I also want him to enjoy his life. So
yeah,
in your own time.
All right, man. You ready to jump into Volume 2? We can talk about what actually happens in this thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Volume 2. After confronting the JSDF, Kaneda, Kei, and Tetsuo are taken into military custody and held in a highly secure skyscraper in Neo-Tokyo. Kei soon escapes after becoming possessed as a medium by another Esper, Kyoko. Kei/Kyoko briefly does battle with Tetsuo and frees Kaneda. After rapidly healing from his wounds, Tetsuo inquires about Akira and forces Dr. Onishi, a project scientist, to take him to the other Espers, Takashi, Kyoko, and Masaru. There, a violent confrontation unfolds between Tetsuo, Kaneda, Kei, and the Espers. The Doctor decides to let Tetsuo harness Akira, the project's test subject that destroyed Tokyo, despite Tetsuo's disturbed personality. Upon learning that Akira is being stored in a cryogenic chamber beneath Neo-Tokyo's new Olympic Stadium, Tetsuo escapes the skyscraper with the intent of releasing Akira. Tetsuo enters the secret military base at the Olympic site the following day, killing many soldiers. The colonel comes to the base and tries to talk Tetsuo out of his plan. Kaneda and Kei enter the site through the sewers and witness the unfolding situation. Tetsuo breaks open the underground cryogenic chamber and frees Akira, who turns out to be an ordinary-looking little boy. The terror of seeing Akira causes one of the colonel's men to declare a state of emergency that causes massive panic in Neo-Tokyo. The colonel himself tries to use Sol, a laser satellite, to kill Tetsuo and Akira, but only succeeds in severing Tetsuo's arm. All right, that's the end of Volume 2, so let's talk about Volume 2.
We kind of think Tetsuo is dead also.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you see his arm get blown off, and he's been so fucking resilient. Like, nothing can kill this guy. I did not think he was dead. Of
course, I think that we're supposed to question whether he's dead or not, but it seems like the character...
I agree that it was kind of like a maybe he's dead. There was a little bit of that, yeah. Yeah, let's back up. So one of the things that I love early on here, I thought was really cool, was Kei being sort of possessed by this other character, Kyoko. Mm-hmm. And because I was so confused, like, what is Kei doing? Like, she had like all these powers, and she could like teleport, and it was. You
kind of thought it was like a reveal, right? Like you were like, oh,
yeah, I was like, holy shit, where did this happen?
Like,
where has this been? And she was acting kind of strange and different. But yeah, come to find out, she's being possessed by another medium, and now has these powers. That's really cool. I like how these powers are playing out in unexpected ways. That's definitely unexpected.
That's one of my favorite things about these sort of stories with like, I mean, there's another one, Mob Psycho, that's very popular these days, Mob Psycho 100, and like telekinesis, or like, what's the other word for that? Like psycho...
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. Telekinesis is moving objects. There's telepathy, where you're like reading other people's minds or implanting thoughts.
Yeah. All right, so the word that I was looking for is ESP, or extrasensory perception, which like often is used in some of these stories.
Yeah, ESP, yeah.
Just as like an umbrella term for like all these different types of abilities. Right. I like the way that this manifests, like you said, like each character seemingly has a different ability. Yeah. And that definitely feels very like almost kind of shonen-ish to me, where like you'll get people with different abilities and the way that they rock, paper, scissors each other. And this one's better than this one because
it's
of this
interesting that they're like all children too, right?
Yeah,
so it's like a bunch of children who are trying to be manipulated by adults.
Yeah, and then obviously I'm sure you picked up on the fact that Akira is young,
super young, yeah,
and these other ones
one of the youngest,
are young people but look old.
Right? Yeah, so it seems like maybe they are older and they just haven't aged. Is my theory. Maybe Akira hasn't aged, but he is older. It seems like it. Like I think the explosion happened like 20 or 30 years ago. So clearly he hasn't aged since that originally happened. Yeah. But yeah, I guess the other ones are also older, but maybe their like bodies aren't growing in the same way, but they are aging because that's why they look old.
But then what about Tetsuo? Tetsuo has these abilities, but obviously got them when he was a teenager.
Yeah, and he's recent. He just got them. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think as time goes on, they look older as they age,
maybe,
but their bodies don't
maybe
change.
Maybe like their bodies stop growing in the same way, but they can still get wrinkly. I don't know. That's my current theory, I guess. It hasn't been explained yet.
We also get introduced to 2 other characters in Volume 3 that are young and have abilities.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll get to those when we get to Volume 3. But yeah, that was one of my notes about this, is that it was super action heavy. It almost felt a bit video gamey at times. You know, with just like going up this skyscraper and then we're going down underground and there's just a lot of traveling and we don't have our motorcycles. So instead we're going to have these like hover cycles come in and we're going to have still chase sequences and lots of explosions as I talked about earlier. And then there's this whole sequence where like stuff's freezing. So we get hot, we get cold, we get a little bit of everything here.
The freezing, the effect of that I think was really
the doctor
well
gets
done
like
because
locked out and like fucking turns into a
but
popsicle.
just like the danger of the situation is so well depicted with the art and the way that like the ice is like seemingly like creeping towards them. And there's like a wall of ice coming at them and like they're, you know, like Kei and Kaneda are in the like, I don't know, ducks or something, and they have to avoid it, and it's kind of splintering out at them at times. And I just thought the artwork in that, and that's all that looked really cool.
Really cool.
Along with like the explosions and the fire.
There's some really cool
and
big splash pages. I think there's that one. There's the explosions. We got the laser. What a craziness. There's like this laser satellite called Soul that just zaps them. They freak out. Like the build up to Akira getting released is so protracted and like everyone's so afraid of it happening. The Colonel's losing his mind and like it really builds up this character in a really interesting way. And I guess later we do, you know, at the end of Volume 3 we see why, but it's a cool ramp up. And and then we see this space laser blast Akira Tetsuo's arm off. Tetsuo's an interesting character, man, because like early on he was definitely pretty villainous. But I feel like in these last, he really isn't in Volume 3 hardly at all, is the thing. But in Volume 2, like, he just kind of seems like he's a bit impish. He's kind of just like, you know what, fuck all of you. I'm going to go get this Akira guy out. You know what I mean? Like, he just kind of, it feels like he's an agent of chaos. Like, he just, like, wants to break the system. He wants to just break everything. He's mad. He's, like, a teenager who's like, kind of like having power for the first time. Maybe he's a bit drunk on it. But I wasn't getting like evil from him, at least not yet. Maybe he gets there because it does feel like he's being corrupted by this, probably being corrupted by this power. And also it's very tied to drugs. He's taking tons of drugs to try and like keep control of this power. But interesting character so far. And like, I'm really curious. Like that's one of the things that I felt like I really want more of is I want more of Tetsuo. I'm really curious about this character. And like, where does he go from here? And I felt like we haven't seen a lot of that so far.
I mean, Tetsuo, like we've kind of talked about some of the what Otomo's kind of intention was with these young characters, and so you see a character that like it's not fair that this stuff is happening to. He didn't ask for this to Tetsuo. Yeah. He is like, you know, like you said, it's corrupting him to an extent, but then he's also like, none of you actually care about me. You care about my powers. You care about what I can do. So then you're understanding the headspace of the character a bit. So yeah, he's not just like, he does do some sadistic shit like early on. He's like killing people like crazy, and he really just doesn't care about other lives. But at the same time, like you can kind of understand like he's in a situation that seemingly, I mean, to me, it seems like along the way, the government has been like exacerbating it in ways.
Yeah. I mean, I do think he's mostly killed military guys who are coming after him, and then like some of the like gang members of the clown gang.
But he'll explode a motherfucker's head. Like
but that guy was,
crazy,
you know, probably not great.
Yeah. I swear, I'm sure that he killed other people, but yeah.
He might have. I don't know. It just feels, I feel a feeling we're going there. Like, it seems like he is definitely on that, like he's being corrupted, and further corruption is probably underway. Maybe in the movie they make him more villainous from the jump. I don't know. But I just thought here, like, he hasn't, I mean, like, he doesn't seem like a good dude, but he also doesn't seem like he's full-blown villain yet for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think that I don't know that he's necessarily the one we're supposed to see as the villain through these first 3 volumes.
Because I kind of missed him when he was absent from the story for a while. Maybe that's just because I think he's like agent of chaos is interesting to see on the page.
I think these like governments acting on their own behalf and like these warring factions are more to blame than Tetsuo so far.
Yeah, right. Maybe that shows some of my bias, but I'm like, fuck all these government types.
I mean, look at them in the story. That you can't. They're all in it for themselves. Even the character, the colonel, who seems like he kind of has the well-being of the nation.
I guess. I don't know. He seems like he's power hungry.
He's definitely a bit power hungry, especially in the Volume 3 when he basically enacts like a
martial law
military takeover. Yeah.
Like he just wants to. Yeah. He basically. Yeah. Let's get to Volume 3 now that we're on to it. Tetsuo disappears in the subsequent explosion, and Kaneda and Kei come across Akira outside the base. Vaguely aware of who he is, they take him back to Neo-Tokyo. Both the Colonel's soldiers and the followers of an Esper named Lady Miyako begin scouring Neo-Tokyo in search of him. Kaneda, Kei, and a third terrorist, Chiyoko, attempt to find refuge with Akira on Nezu's yacht. However, Nezu betrays them and kidnaps Akira for his use, attempting to have them killed. They survive the attempt and manage to snatch Akira from Nezu's mansion. The colonel, desperate to find Akira and fed up with the government's tepid response to the crisis, mounts a coup d'etat and puts the city under martial law. The colonel's men join Lady Miyako's acolytes and Nezu's private army in chasing Kaneda, Kei, Chiyoko, and Akira through the city. The pursuit ends at a canal, and Kaneda's group surrounded by the colonel's troops. As Akira is being taken into the colonel's custody, Nezu attempts to shoot Akira rather than have him be put into the government's hands, and he is immediately fired upon and killed by the colonel's men. However, Nezu's shot misses Akira and hits Takashi in the head, killing him instantly. The trauma of Takashi's death causes Akira to trigger a second psychic explosion that destroys Neo-Tokyo. Kei, Ryu, Chiyoko, and the Colonel and the other two Espers survive the catastrophe. Kaneda, however, disappears as the blast surrounds him. After the city's destruction, Tetsuo reappears and meets Akira. That's the end of Volume 3. Yeah. So many questions left unanswered. But let's back up here. We got a bunch of new characters get introduced in this volume. Lady Miyako, who seems to be like some sort of spiritual leader who is implied that she also has some psychic powers. And she has some of these espers that like work for her. And she's connected to Nezu, who's like one of the leaders of the terrorist, they call them terrorists, whatever, like rebel organization that Kei works for. So there's some interesting connections there, even though he looks and reads like a bad guy every time you see him. Sure enough, he is. Well,
yeah. And then turns out at the end he is in it for himself. Like he's part of this resistance group. He's a part of this
he's corrupt
woman's faction, and then eventually he's corrupted to where he's like, I can't. He thinks he knows best, so he starts doing what he wants to do, and just thinking like, I'm the only one who can handle this power. With Lady Miyako, we saw the number on her hand, I believe, at one point, so she definitely is a numbered like user.
It's like a lower number too, like 19 or something.
16, I think. One of the major things I wanted to note here is like, just like we've been talking so much about the design that Otomo has been putting into all of his work, these like really meticulous like architectural looks, these like the ways that we're seeing like even just like troops and scenes that are so rich and so full of like so much detail. And then like nearing the end of this, we get destruction that is so equally detailed.
So detailed.
And just building up that world and then destroying it. And then how much more like intense that feels because it feels grounded and real. Like something that we've lived in for such a long time. Yeah. And all that detail and all that effort that we've seen, that we assume that they've had to rebuild Tokyo and after the World War III stuff.
Yeah, so this is now the rebuilt Neo-Tokyo being destroyed again. And he, one of the things he does, and we're skipping ahead a little bit in the volume, and we'll come back to stuff that happens more towards the beginning, but he actually takes a moment and shows us this little like slice of life of this family who seems completely disconnected from everything. And they're just hearing about on the news, like some sort of state of emergency, but they're like, turn off the TV, we shouldn't have it on while we're trying to do this other stuff. We're eating dinner.
It's intercut between like the intensity of the moment.
With the faces reacting to what they're seeing from Akira and like, so that's a really good way to like show us the innocents who are getting caught up in this, this devastation and maybe lending some credence to the Colonel and all of his behavior, was trying to prevent this from happening, I guess. Although also seems like they kind of also are making it like they've also created this whole situation. So I don't know how much like sympathy I have for them.
Yeah, initially it seems like he was in control. He's like, we gotta find somebody to control Akira. It's all the this institution that's been built up, and they're like constantly in a situation where it's of their own design, right? Yeah. Like it's the hubris that's gone into all of this.
We also have these other three Vespers, I think they're. Did we even, Espers, yeah. Have we seen that term appear yet in the comic? I don't remember, because I know I read it in the summary, so like it's in my mind already, but I can't remember if we actually saw it or not.
I thought so, but I also think that's a term that like is just used generally. I don't know if it's like Japanese use it, like Japanese stories tend to use it, or if it's like a translation thing that I often see it from Japanese stories being called espers.
Like another
But it
story,
might
they
just
call
be
them espers.
it might just be a term for like a ghostly figure,
Gifted.
like that sort of like psychic being or something like that. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we see some more of them, which I wasn't necessarily expecting that we'd have these other ones who are like not being controlled by the government. They seem to be working for this other person, this lady. And they each have their own kind of unique powers. And I think the coolest one is this like young girl who looks kind of like tomboyish, who is sent to find Akira, who is like, I feel like she's always like ninjaing around, like up in the rafters. Like people don't ever see her. She's just like sitting on the side of a building watching, and people are like, I feel like I'm being watched, like just super sneaky. And then she creeps into the house and is able to sort of get Akira and go. So she was a really cool character. And then also when she fights, she seems to be like boosting her speed and power, and she's like slamming into people and like ninjaing around once again,
jumping over them often,
jumping super high. Like she can almost fly, because I think she can jump so high. That's all really cool. Another favorite character of mine that grew into a favorite was this Chiyoko character. Comes out of nowhere. Yeah. She's just like hanging out at this place. She's like serving food.
I think it's her aunt. I think it's Kei's aunt or something like that. Or
maybe that is the case. Yeah. So I don't know. She's just badass though, and then like she gets drawn into all these conflicts, and she's just super like she's a normal person, but she's just really powerful. She can like slam people around like she's a fucking defensive lineman in the NFL.
But she's just down for the cause too. Like she like somebody like so like somebody turns up the jumper. Shows up to steal Akira, and Chiyoko is like, oh, maybe this will help, and it's like a fucking gigantic Gatling gun.
Big Gatling gun looking thing, yeah.
And you're like, okay, like, whoa, who's this character? And like you said, very physically like menacing and like fucking punching people in the face, and just like, very cool character.
Yeah, don't fuck with her, man. She's great. So we get just a lot of cool like kind of chases and stuff that goes on here. We get this whole sequence on the yacht, which is really interesting, where Kaneda gets like poisoned, and because he's just like every other classic. I feel like, and maybe I don't know, maybe this is like an earlier one, but like the dude fucking loves to eat. So every time there's food, he's like he's like stuff in his face, and classic. Also, probably just true for teenage boys in general. I was certainly like that.
It's definitely a shonen trope, though. Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like it is, right? Anyway. And then at one point, they're like, that food might be poisoned. He's like, I'm too hungry, whatever. And he eats. And then later, he's like, oh, no, the food was poisoned. And he's like, ah.
And then it's funny because that's played for another joke later.
It's
where
just
it's
a
like,
joke, because he vomits.
He's like, I don't know if it actually was poison or if I just got seasick.
Yeah, because he vomits on like another character.
He's like in the bat, and there's a fight that and
I guess that's the explanation for how he survived the poison. He just threw it up because they were trying to kill them. Like that was the whole point. Is that this is when he turns on him. What's his name? Nezu. Nezu turns on them, tries to kill them, tries to kill Kei. This whole fight ensues. One of the cool parts with Chiyoko, where she like throws an inflatable raft at the guy and it pops open and knocks him off the ship. Like that part's really rad.
No, it pops open and is like a visual block, and she punches through it.
Oh
like
yeah,
her fist comes through she punches
so cool.
through the raft. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's so good, man. And then then we get the final big showdown in the canal. I did like there was a little bit of a fourth wall break where they say something like, oh, this is the climax, that's why we're all here, or something like that. Like, it was funny.
All the characters, the gang's all here, or whatever. Like, all the characters are here for the finale. For the finale.
That's the finale, yeah. But I guess it's not really the finale, but like, kind of is.
It was about to be the finale, yeah.
It's about to be the finale. And then we get...
Because that's like the cliffhanger that the volume, like the chapters are leaving you on, right? It's like, this is a chapter that's basically saying like, hey guys, think about this for the next month or two until the next chapter comes out. All the characters are in the same place. What do you think is gonna happen? Like, just ruminate on that while we create.
So we're about to get this big explosion, but I want to ask you first, because like, what did you think of Kaneda in the manga as like this? Like, I guess there's not like really a protagonist. There's not really one, but he kind of is one. And like, I was so unimpressed by him so far. Like, what has he even really done other than just like be kind of funny?
Yeah.
Like, I guess he's kind of funny and charismatic, but he's just kind of a goofball. He's not really very powerful. He gets lucky a ton. He continues to just be super lucky. He's got a bit of Matt Cawthon in him in that way. Just kind of bumbles his way through situations where he just like accidentally does things that are helpful, I guess.
Yeah, so a lot of these characters actually do get really lucky as well. At one point, Chiyoko even like lampshades it by being like, she's firing this like Gatling gun, and she's like, you guys couldn't hit the broadside of a barn or whatever.
Yeah.
And like it's like everybody's missing.
They got
in this entire story.
Stormtrooper-itis over here. They're all shooting everywhere. Yeah,
people are always missing. The explosions, like the characters tend to be able to survive just insane stuff. You're like, it's ridiculous at some point. And I don't know, that could be grating to some, but to me, I'm like, oh, it's just a fun adventure. Like I'm along.
Yeah, it seems to just be part of it, and that is about to come into play here at the end. So,
but that does get into some of the stuff with Kaneda, where like he is like definitely that like shonen audience insert sort of character, where it's like he's funny.
I do think he's that for sure.
He's definitely bringing in like a younger audience, but like an older audience can also kind of read him and be like, okay, yeah, it's fine. He's not the most interesting character that's there, but he's cool enough. And
in fact, I find Kay more interesting than him. Like I continue to want to, but even her, like I want to know more about her, and I feel like we still don't get a lot of character development for any of these characters because there's just so much action. We're just spending so much time in these crazy sequences that like there's not a lot of time to like learn about who these people are.
There's really not, and I have to assume that there's more of it because I think there's a bit more in the film that's like more defined, but I would think there's more in the volumes 4, 5, and 6 leading up to the finale. And everything.
I'd be curious to see. That'd be something to track. So this leads up to the big explosion, which is caused by this moment where Nezu shoots at Akira to try and kill him because he's basically like, if I can't control him, no one should. Everyone's trying to control this little kid who I think very notably hasn't really done anything violent. He just seems to just be like, whatever, I'm just a little kid, I'm walking around. He doesn't say anything really.
Yeah. And also is fine in a lot of stressful situations. Like it's not like, oh, the stressful situation has got Akira to the point that he's going to blow up. Yeah. It's until something insanely like life-shattering where these were clearly his friends previously.
Yeah, he
like
knew
Takashi,
them. They
right?
knew each other from before. And it's Takashi or whatever. Yeah, he's the one who. So Nezu tries to shoot him and ends up shooting Takashi in the head right in front of him. And, like blood sprays on his face. And this is what triggers this psychic explosion. So, yes, Akira is dangerous. And yes, Akira is capable of this explosion. However, really, it's Nezu. It's all these other people that cause it, right? Like, he didn't cause it himself. So I think there's something being said there for sure, right? Like, what actually causes this to happen?
Yeah, and like, we're just in talking about the art, too. Like, this is such a bold way to draw it. This is a bold thing to do in your story.
Yeah. There's like a frame where the bullet is like right next to his head or just maybe starting to hit it.
Yeah. And then like the way that the blood is like trailing out and his body's falling. But I'm even talking about like when Akira starts like defining this like almost like atom bombs thing where like you can see like matter swirling and it starts to build up and like
there's a reason this is an iconic moment, you know, like this is legendary stuff. And the black, like it's such a dark like kind of blast, and I'm really curious to see how this translates to the anime with color because mine's just black and white, so it's just this black sphere. And
but when you see it in black, that also like it's a good moment for just saying like with black and white, it's so striking for that kind of like black, like almost black hole explosion
instead of bright. Usually explosions are bright, but this is dark,
wild. And then just seeing like the destruction, seeing the characters like trying to like the ones nearby trying to like survive it.
Yeah. How the fuck did any of them live?
Well, they got transported. They got teleported away to like perfect spot.
Is that what happened? Because they were like, we saw them like flying onto a building or something, and I wasn't sure if we were supposed to think that they got blasted up there. But you're saying maybe they got teleported? Again, this is another moment where I was a little unclear of the mechanics of how they got there.
There's a conversation between Matsuro and Kyoko where they say something about like we got to get these people out of here. And then like that's like there's like a sort of transportation, whether they like flew away on Matsuro's like chair or if there was sort of a teleportation thing, because there's because
it must have been a teleportation because it seemed like it had to have happened really fast.
And that's something that we've established she can do. So I think they teleported.
That's true. Okay, that makes me feel a little better because I thought from the way it looked like they were like falling onto this skyscraper, and I thought that they were implying they got blown up into the air and then landed on a skyscraper, and because they landed on a skyscraper, they were okay.
I don't think so, but
it's like that's insane. If that's what they're saying happened here.
But then, because Kaneda has like a reaction where he's like, "How did I get up here? I was just somewhere else." And he's like,
"Well, and Kaneda gets like exploded or is absorbed or something."
Yeah, but to a different spot. Like he's up on the building, and there's this bank sign behind him.
Yeah, because then there's another because the explosion keeps coming, basically, right?
Yeah, it keeps coming. Yeah, he couldn't get outside the blast.
Again, I still don't know how any of these people live, but maybe they're teleported again. I don't know. I don't know because the amount of destruction is and beautifully drawn is like complete and total annihilation of the city, basically. and they're in the city. So how do they live? I don't know. Plot. They did have really good plot armor. Is what it seems.
Well,
like.
they've been lucky this far. They've been very lucky, and it continues to hold true. They're very
maybe Akira, decided not to kill them. Maybe he's powerful enough to maybe do that.
I also was wondering if there was Tetsuo's has a reaction there. There's one moment during all the exploding where Tetsuo is awoken almost and climbs out of rubble.
Is that who it is?
I think Tetsuo. Yeah.
Again, that's one moment. And you have to know who that face is. But I think you're right. There is one reaction. And that's the only time we've seen him in this entire volume. We heard about him. There was an interesting little detail where they say there was somebody who checked themselves into the hospital with a severely mangled arm or something and refused treatment but just accepted some drugs and left. And that's the only thing we've heard about him thus far. And that was a cool little moment. But
so I didn't know if he had... Because it seemed like they kept talking about how... Tetsuo and Akira kind of would resonate with one another. So I'm wondering if he was able to lessen the blast or this or that or whatever he was able to do. But ultimately he does appear before Akira. And just to say the destruction goes on for half this chapter where it's there's the blast and then there's the building, the rubble, and then there's this really poignant moment of through the shadows there's a beam of light down to Akira.
Which is reminiscent of the fucking space laser too, but
yeah.
There's these beams of light coming down through the clouds, and in one of them, Tetsuo shows up to Akira, and I'm just really curious by this, and I mean, just from everything you've kind of hinted at, and what I seems to be the case for the story, it doesn't seem like this pairing is good, and that Tetsuo being here with Akira is going to be ultimately a good thing, but I don't know, man. I'm just I'm really interested to see what happens here, and I feel like there's a lot of potential in this story. And I couldn't believe that this was the end of Volume 3 because I was there's so much. What happens next? This is the most important bit right here. And between that and then Kay and Canada's relationship has somewhat progressed, but really hasn't gone anywhere yet. So I feel that's a dangling thing. What's the deal with the two of them? Canada really hasn't done a whole lot. He got exploded here, so assuming he's not dead. What happened to him? That seems like a big plot point that is interesting that I needed to find out about.
He looks super vaporized though, right? He was literally getting dematerialized, he's coming apart, and he's okay. And they have that whole relationship that's kind of been back and forth of will they, won't they kind of thing. I would say too with Akira and Tetsuo, when you see these characters too, you can see that they were what happened to Tetsuo, we can assume probably also and more happened to Akira. So the testing and the manipulation and the trying to control and all that kind of stuff. So you see these two characters together now.
Yeah, and he's younger too, right? So he's gonna maybe be a little more pliant early on.
Yeah.
Whereas Tetsuo has always been a fucking rebel about all this shit.
Yeah.
Let me just say, I also just love the way he draws Tetsuo. To me, he's one of the most interestingly drawn character every time he shows up.
Definitely. He keeps getting spikier hair. It seems his forehead's getting larger.
He's got rags dangling off of him.
Yeah.
He's
got
really
sometimes when he was in the Sub-Zero environment, he had a cool kind of pilot's looking jacket with fur on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then
I thought that was Akira, by the way, for the longest time. I thought that's who Akira was. I didn't know that it was somebody else.
And it seems his forehead, his head, from when before he didn't look like that, and then it seemed his forehead.
He's
and
got a
his
bit of
head
Vegeta
got
head going on, where it's how big is this guy's fucking forehead?
Yeah. It's
or maybe I guess Vegeta has a bit of his head going, Tetsuo head going on.
Sure.
Yeah, because that would have followed. All right, man. So that's the end of Volume 3. We got to wrap it up now for the manga, but we are going to return with the anime next week. So excited for that. But I'm having such fun with reading the manga again. I definitely want to read the other volumes over on Patreon. If you enjoyed our coverage of this, please let us know in the form of a rating and review on whatever app you chose to listen on. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to like this video. I also just recently started doing YouTube Music, which is a function you can do on YouTube. I didn't realize. And it's kind of like its own music player. But if you listen to our podcast, you can also get the videos in the YouTube Music app to play. And you can just like that. So I thought that was a little interesting functionality I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently that's a thing that you can do. So I thought that was cool. Anyway, we'd love to have your support that way, leaving us comments, sharing the videos with your friends. If you know anybody else who likes Akira, maybe tell them about our coverage. We'd love to get the word out on this one. And we don't do a lot of anime and manga. So the better this does, the maybe more that would tell us that this is something people are interested in, and maybe we'll do more.
Yeah, and definitely leave comments and let us know, if you want to hear more. We're hoping to do the rest of those volumes. Let us know if you want to hear us talk more about Akira, these final 3 volumes that we haven't covered, and just more anime and manga in general, and that's where I want to be. That's where what I want to be.
We'll do some of it regardless, but definitely the better this does, the more that makes us want to get back to this world, this medium, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. And if you'd like to connect with us in other ways, we are also on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all of those at Ink2Film, and really on pretty much every social media platform that exists.
Yeah. We do also have that Patreon. We've talked about it several times. So what I'm going to instead talk about is that we have a bookshop, and I'm going to put all the volumes of Akira in these paperback volumes that I have here, which are beautiful. We talked about at length. I'll also see if I can put the hardcover on there. A lot of this stuff is there available on Bookshop. We'll put it all on our Bookshop account, which there'll be links for in the show notes. And if you buy it through our link, it doesn't cost you any extra, but we get like a little kickback from Bookshop. So it's a good way to support our podcast just with your buying habits. And as we've already talked about, this is a really cool product. We recommend it. So that would be a great way to do it, and a cool way to show us a little bit of support. All right, man, that's going to be it for this week. We're back next week with an anime that I feel like I've heard about for many, many years, and it's been one of those on my list that I'm like, I really want to check this out one of these days. And then as soon as we started the podcast, it was like, oh, maybe this will be a project. So it's kind of one of those I haven't touched in a long time, and I've had this reason to hold off, but here we are. We're finally here. I finally get to watch it. It's going to be our Christmas episode.
Yeah.
So 'tis the season to watch Akira, I guess.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited, man.
I can't wait. Back to the neon streets of Neo Tokyo, seeing all this stuff in motion. So I'm overjoyed.
I'm ready for color. You've already got a taste of color. I'm ready for color.
Yeah.
All right, man. That's going to be it. So until next time.
Keep adapting.